Hello, hi everybody. So it's been a while since I made a actual video. I've been doing tons of live streams on swatching watercolors, and today I'm actually going to be going over some of the things that we did in the live stream. I've been swatching all of my watercolor paints, and I have 8 brands in this book that we're going to go over today. If you want to see those actual swatching videos, go ahead and you can go look at them. They're all saved here on YouTube. And I go over different things about the watercolors that I find important to know when I'm choosing paint for a painting. For example, this one here. You see my new easel? Woo! So exciting. That's a painting that I'm working on. And before I decided to use Mjello for this particular painting, I assessed the qualities of the different brands that I have. I've got 8 watercolor brands in all. I've swatched them all in this book. So let's get started going over what they are. So the first one that I swatched is Schmincke. Schmincke. It's Schmincke. How many times do I need to be coached on how to say that? This is what we did. It says how many paints I had, what was swatched. I used this sheet for all of the different paints, and you look at different qualities: light fastness, transparency, saturation, granulation, etc., etc. I found that there were quite a few granulating pigments in the Schmincke brand. I also found that they were kind of interesting how they worked. You kind of have to put them down and leave them alone. As far as like some info about them, I have some info here that I didn't necessarily share with you during the live stream. These paints, Schmincke, they're manufactured in Germany. And what I thought was really cool is that all of my paints are manufactured in a different country. And I love travel and I studied anthropology. So I love different cultures and different ways of doing things. So I liked that all of my brands were from a different country except two. Two both came from the US. Just things to know about Schmincke paints. They were wet really well. They're known for their smooth washes. I didn't find that so much when I tried to use them. I found them to make that line around, which is a very watercolory thing to happen. And if you like that, cool. But for me, it was in a portrait and it was in an awkward place, so I didn't love it. They're great for wet and wet, but they don't necessarily explode with dispersion like some brands, like maybe Daniel Smith. That'll be the last one we're going over today. They were founded in 1881 by Joseph Hordman and Herman Schmincke. The binder that they use is Kordofan gum Arabic, apparently from the Sahara region. So some of their pigments literally date back to the 19th century, which is pretty impressive. So the next one that we are going to do is Sennelier. We're going to skip a page because I had some color wheels. Here's Sennelier. I have a lot more of those, obviously. This is one of my favorite paints. I love it for doing portraits, and it works really great for layering. I know that some people say that you can layer Schmincke really well, but I haven't used it enough to have an opinion on that yet. So this particular one, manufactured in France. They have a honey-based binder, which keeps them moist in the pan, and they flow really easily on the paper. They can be layered, but tend to stay somewhat soft. They were founded in 1887 by Gustave Sennelier, and who was originally a chemist. I think that's pretty cool. The honey gives them like this kind of unique luminosity and creamy consistency. The next one we've got is Qor. These are the colors that I have. I hope that they're accurate on here. They look really bright. I don't think Qor watercolors are bright, but not quite as bright as the sun streaming through the window is making them seem. These ones are really fun because they kind of do go crazy with water. They're like very like all over the place. When you put them down, they move really fast. They're very exciting paints to use, but they're also kind of maybe a little stressful if you're new to watercolor and you don't want things moving super fast. So because of that reason, they might be better for wet and wet technique. They have a synthetic binder, Aquazol. That Aquazol is actually one of the things that allows for for the really intense pigmentation and the crazy dispersion that happens, but it can make layering tricky due to their high staining properties. I haven't had a lot of trouble with them for layering, but then like that's not really my go-to anymore for when I'm doing a portrait, which is usually when I'm doing layering. Qor stands for quality of results. They were created by Golden Artist Colors, a company known for their acrylic paints. I haven't used their acrylic paints, just their watercolor. Golden comes from the founder, Sam Golden, who started the company in 1980. Our next one is from Szmal. You see, these are a lot more muted than the Qor. And they are really so much fun. I would say out of like all of my paints, that they are maybe even more fun than Qor. Or maybe even more fun than Daniel Smith. Daniel Smith has like a lot of granulation, so does Szmal. And that can be really exciting. Not necessarily great for portraits per se, but they are decent at layering. They're really highly pigmented, but they're mostly transparent. They are mostly single pigment, which is nice if you're into mixing your own paints. They handle wet and wet well, but they don't like disperse as dramatically as Qor or Sennelier. They're a relatively new brand. They were founded by Roman Szmal. You can see interviews with him talking about his process and why he invented them. And that's, to me, very, like, I love the origin story. They're all hand poured, individually tested for quality. They use traditional European pigments with an emphasis on transparency and natural granulation. The granulation's awesome. I do like them, but that, for me, if I'm like doing a portrait or something, I don't really like the granulation within the browns. Or like if it's a smaller portrait, the granulation on a human face kind of looks weird to me. Might be great for like a big portrait though. I get very excited when I pull these out, and a lot of these colors are new to me and I've never actually painted a portrait with them. If you want to see the live stream that I made with these, then you can see me unboxing some of these colors. So also with the Schmincke is an unboxing video. The next one that we're doing is the St. Petersburg. As you can see here, right there, it's a really small palette, and it's one of the few things I've bought as a palette. Schmincke I bought as a palette, and then this one as well. Because I bought it as its own little unit. It's very few colors, but a very nice selection. I think it's a really great brand for beginners because you use a lot of colors that are kind of traditionally used in, like, that you see a lot of artists saying that they use. A lot of professional artists saying that they use. And so it's kind of nice to be able to like see the colors and use the colors that these professional artists are using. I apologize for the lighting. It's the first sunny day in a while. And I wasn't kind of expecting it. And these are very watercolory watercolors. They're very similar to maybe Sennelier in that they kind of like, they do what you would expect a watercolor to do. And that is great. They're nice. They work well. They are originally manufactured in Russia. Well, I guess originally they are manufactured in Russia. They're good for wet and wet techniques. They have a high pigment load, excellent flow, but they can be difficult to layer due to their strong staining power. I've seen people say that, but then I would also say that they might be difficult to layer because they are kind of, a lot of them are kind of opaque. Like the yellow's opaque. Trying to remember. Yeah, the cadmium red is also very opaque. That would be nice to layer, but if you did cadmium red first, trying to do another color on top. So they might be talking about where the information I'm getting is kind of like crowdsourced, and so some of that information may be colors that I don't have here. Oh, the lighting has gone so different than what I was expecting. Hold on. That's better. They're produced. I can't pronounce the name, but the Nevishikya Palitra Company, which has been making paints since 1934. Apparently, their name White Nights refers to the long summer's days in St. Petersburg. Next is Winsor and Newton. These were some of the first paints that I got. They look much more brilliant here than they necessarily do in person, especially in the red zone. And they are just a very watercolory watercolor. They behave as expected. And I really like that, because if you just really want to know what you're gonna get, Winsor and Newton is like one of my go-to brands. Sennelier, Winsor and Newton, and Mjello, which we'll be doing next. Mjello just kind of stays where you put it, which is nice. Winsor and Newton moves a little bit more, but you kind of can get some predictable results. I've also been using them for a long time, so they're more familiar to me. They were apparently manufactured in the United Kingdom. They're great for layering. They're known for their high transparency and smooth application, making them ideal for glazing. Wet and wet effects are moderate compared to brands like Sennelier or Qor. So you can do wet and wet with them. I've done it, but it's not as great as maybe Daniel Smith or Roman Szmal. So I just typically use them for portraits. So they were founded in 1832 by William Winsor and Henry Newton. They're one of the oldest and most respected brands in the world. That's not really what I hear when I go to the art supply store. I hear they're expensive, but I like them. I like them a lot. And also, apparently they were the first to introduce glycerin into watercolor formulas, improving rewetting properties. I think they rewet okay, but there are some paints that rewet a lot easier. But rewetting isn't always necessarily something that you want to happen, because like you want it to rewet easily enough. But also, when it's on the paper, do you want your watercolor getting picked up again when you put another layer on? Something being super rewetting is not necessarily the best thing. The next thing we're gonna do is Mjello. And Mjello has super pigmented. This isn't too far off from reality. It is a little bit more pigmented than reality, but not by a huge amount. And they stay put. That's my favorite thing about them. You put them down, they stay put, and they have kind of a glowy quality. They are manufactured in South Korea. They're said to be great for wet and wet, but I prefer them for layering because they stay put. And they're extremely vibrant. Some people have said that they tend to lift easily, making layering more difficult, but I don't necessarily think that that's true. They're created by Mjello, a company that originally specialized in artist palettes. So they're known for their intensely saturated colors, and some people criticize them for being too vibrant, but I think it's nice to have that option within watercolor if that's what you want. There are plenty of other brands that are less vibrant if that's what you are going for. They have a slightly different binder that leads them to have a glossy finish, which I like because it's a little bit like oil paints, but not too much. I do prefer a matte finish most of the time. And some of the paints have multiple pigments to achieve extreme vibrancy, but for most of them, they're single pigment. And most of them are very light fast. So the last one that we did, Daniel Smith. Daniel Smith are manufactured in Seattle and in the United States. And they are, some people say that they're good for layering. I don't think so. I think that they are better for wet and wet. They have high granulation. They have a lot of transparent colors. A lot of the ones that I swatched today, though, aren't particularly light fast, and a lot of information isn't available on their tubes. So what I was able to get during the live stream, some of the information somewhat limited. They were founded in 1967 in Seattle, Washington. They're known for their unique mineral-based pigments like Serpentine Genuine and Amethyst Genuine. I actually have Serpentine Genuine on here. Where is it? Right there. And then I've got another fancy one called Sodalite Genuine. Do I have any others? Oh yeah, the Sleeping Beauty. Turquoise. I can't read my own writing. Maybe it says genuine. If you watch the live stream, I'm sure I pronounce it correctly. Their Primatech line uses real crushed minerals for natural granulation. So the ones I just pointed out, they're using that. Supposedly, they are pioneers in light fastness testing, ensuring longevity in their pigments. Their numbers were all over the place for light fastness. Like some had a rating of 1 and some had a rating of 4. I don't know if 4 is better than your average watercolor paint. Maybe they have their own system. I didn't look into it too much, but maybe that's something I'll check out later, and I'll let you know. Maybe I'll add a little bit of info right here or something like that. So that's what's in this swatch book. If you want to check out more information about them, you can go look at the full long live streams. I feel like having it all in one place makes it a lot easier to make well-informed decisions. So thank you so much for joining me talking about the swatch book, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!